Hello and welcome to Rare Cuts Media Society, the podcast that looks at hidden media gems that ask the question, do I have to do this all over again? With your hosts, as always, I'm Andrew Jagoda, and with me we've got Rob Leachik. How are you today, Rob?
Doing well this fine morning. I'm happy to report that I did not see a giant eye staring back at me when I opened the medicine cabinet this morning. So it's a good start to the day.
That means you took the right pills this morning. Mike Ross, how are you today, Mike?
I'm doing well. I woke up, remembering I don't know how to swim, but if I did, I would love to go swimming with some porpoises. That'd just be good fun.
They're very helpful, And Eric Hathorn, how are you today, Eric?
Pretty good, Mike. I think there's a song about that. I think it's called the Porpoise Song. No. Yes, I'm doing great because we're talking about my weird, but maybe not too weird. I don't know. It's for you guys to decide. Maybe we are going to disguise it. But I'm excited to talk about my pick. Spoiler alert. Sheesh. So yes, I got the pick, and I'm going to say I understand. I will. These are my disclaimers before we get into it. The thing was to pick a concept album, and I picked a movie and its soundtrack, which is maybe pretending to be a concept album, but maybe it is a great concept album. But I think you can't look at anything that the Monkees do without looking at the music plus the visual, because even since the beginning they've always been a visual band with the TV show and the records. So it's always a this and that. Like the Monkees music without the show is slightly out of context. The show without the music, well, the music's in the show, would be out of context. So I think you have to look at Head, which is what I picked. I picked the Monkees' Head as a movie and an album, and then you guys can decide if it actually is a concept album or if it's a glorious mess, or if it's both, because why can't it be both? So I did pick the Monkees' 1968 Head album and movie together, because concept albums often they aim to tell like a bigger story. It's something like an external story, usually like the works of Edgar Allan Poe, or like the nefarious marketing tactics of the cola industry, or maybe even a possessed baby named Abigail. Those are all those concept albums we've seen so far, but not too many projects turn that concept inward like the Monkees' Head does. So it was released in 1968 at a crossroads in the band's career, and Head was an attempt to confront and deconstruct and redefine the identity that the band had caught between the manufactured pop stardom and their actual genuine artistic ambition. Because the Monkees were always, pretty much since the beginning, dismissed as a corporate television fabrication of a band, and the band itself tried to use Head to challenge their own image and kind of mock the creation of the band and push for a place in like the counterculture of the late 1960s. The movie itself, and actually part of the album, were like written by Jack Nicholson. Yes, that Jack Nicholson. And it came after a brainstorming session with the producers of the show and the band and Jack Nicholson, and he kind of put it all in a blender, all the things they said, and mixed surrealism, satire, and a little bit of experimental music, but also manufactured pop music. So it was a rebellion and like an artistic reinvention for the band, but it was also like a kind of messy identity crisis all at once. So before we can really understand Head, we need to understand the Monkees themselves. And I want to get just a little history on them and then kind of see where you guys are at with them. So they were created in 1966. If you think that 66 to 68, that's like a flash in the pan, but like they're kind of a household name. So they were created in 1966 by producers Bob Rafelson and Bert Schneider as a television band inspired by the Beatles' A Hard Day's Night. That's no secret. They're very Beatles knockoff coded, if you're familiar with the Monkees. So the Monkees were intentionally assembled to balance different personalities, which could very easily clash, and different talent amounts and commercial appeal. So some of the members were musicians like Michael Nesmith and Peter Tork. Others were actors like Mickey Dolenz and Davy Jones, and they had that like previous television and stage performance history where like Nesmith and Tork were like on the like, you know, independent music scene essentially. From the beginning, the manufactured design and those different personalities created tension in the group, like right from the get-go. And then because they were manufactured, that really affected how they were perceived publicly. Critics often dismiss them, well, even just non-fans often dismiss them as artificial, but they were actually also respected by their peers like the Beatles. And it's kind of weird to call them peers, but like the Beatles like really enjoyed the Monkees, which is kind of an interesting piece there. So despite that teeny bopper bubblegum image, the Monkees were always a little bit more complicated than they appeared on the surface. So before we even get started, I want to go around and hear like your perception of the Monkees, maybe your personal history with them. They were not on TV while we were like cognizant of it. They had a reboot in the 80s, so that's why I say that. But they were not TV stars of our time, but they were in syndication throughout the 80s and 90s that we might have had some experience with them. So let's go. I'm going to start in the top corner. Mike, what is your familiarity with the Monkees?
Well, for the people in the Chicagoland area that are our age or older, you should all be familiar with Oldies 104.3. And that is what my mom would listen to constantly.
Yes.
There was no other station for her. So I heard a lot of different classic tracks and from the 60s. And so, of course, the Monkees were on there. So that was probably my first like experience with them. And I love Last Train to Clarksdale, and I also like Not My Stepping Stone. And to me, they were just another band. And then like I would occasionally not have anything on TV because we only had so many channels. We didn't have cable or anything. And yeah, like you said, Monkees was in syndication, so it would come on, and sometimes I'd catch some of it. I wasn't a huge fan of the show, even as a little kid, but I did like the intro. So oftentimes I'd watch the intro, be like, yeah, click, and I'll go to the next channel. So, I mean, that's kind of my experience. I mean, I, as a child, would have assumed they were a band first, and then they got a TV show. I mean, that's how I would have processed it. And just for a little extra credit, I even talked to my parents to get their feedback on their experience with the Monkees. And my mom was like, oh, yeah, no, we watched the show all the time, and it was kind of weird. And which is not dissimilar from what this movie is, I guess. And for my dad, like he listened to their music. He thought it was all right. He watched the TV show, but like he wasn't like crazy about them. Like he never went out and bought any of their records or anything like that. And I think my mom bought a couple. So I think my mom took them more seriously as like a band or group or whatever. And my dad was like, yeah, it's good, but I'm not, it's not like the other rock music. It's not like Cream or something else that's going on at the time.
So mine is more of just kind of a casual, I do them as a TV show that also had songs. So I kind of maybe a little bit backwards of you, Mike, where it's like you kind of talked about the music first a little bit. Like then they got a TV show. I'm like, they got a TV show. I guess they got some songs. Let's just put them on the radio. So I personally like, if I heard a Monkee song on the radio, I'd know it was the Monkees, right? It's pretty identifiable, right? But I can't say that I'm going to be like reaching to listen to, or I have reached to listen to the Monkees in the past. My history was, I knew there was a TV show. It was silly, goofy, a knockoff of the Beatles, if you will, at least in some capacity. But that was really my familiarity in the past. I mean, I knew they were banned. I didn't know all of the, like Eric, like you kind of outlined some of the internal turmoil, if you will, within the group. I didn't know any of that, but kind of a good learning as we've kind of bringing this into the Rare Cuts world here to kind of learn more about the Monkees. But yeah, my background was purely about the TV show, and I think even some of the spoofs, they made fun of it in The Simpsons a little bit. Wasn't there a bit about Marge being bamboozled that the Monkees really didn't play their instruments and she started crying as a little girl or something along those lines? So that was probably maybe my first intro into the Monkees. And then maybe like catch up a little bit like, oh, what is this? But yeah, so it was mainly the TV show, not necessarily the music.
Yeah, for me, it was along a lot of the same lines. It was, what channel was it? 26 maybe, that did reruns, and it would be, the Brady Bunch, Partridge Family, and the Monkees. And so I'd watch the show because we didn't have a lot of channels, like Mike said, no cable. But my mom was a huge Monkees fan, so I knew about the music, and I had heard all the big hits, and she had the greatest hits CD and all that. But again, like Rob was saying, I didn't know about the band very much, other than that joke from The Simpsons. All of their history and their fights, yes, and what they were exactly.
And something I would say that's interesting about the Monkees is like when you listen to some of, well, they weren't around very long, so you listen to those couple initial albums that were output, you can detect like DNA from other bands that are influencing what is being created. And so like I'm referenced Not My Stepping Stone, like, yeah, I heard that song a lot as a kid, but I never attributed it to the Monkees. In my head, it was the Animals. Like it sounded like that, similar style, a little bit rougher than, Daydream Believer. And so like in my head, it's almost like the Monkees were almost like the people behind the Monkees were the Mega Man of the music industry, like absorbing the powers from what has been proven a success or a hit maker.
100%. And so like to jump off that, because that's a kind of a big piece. The Monkees, like there were musicians in the Monkees, and then shout out to Mickey Dolenz, who learned to play the drums once being cast in the show, because he had to fake it on screen. But then, of course, when they played live tours, he had to learn how to play it. So like 3 out of the 4 Monkees learned to play their instruments, but then Davy Jones played the tambourine. So I guess he technically learned to play his instrument too. So they did play it, but the album was created by like the Wrecking Crew, which in the music biz, like the Wrecking Crew was like that group of studio musicians that like were behind, like they played on a lot of like big records throughout like the 60s and 70s. And they were kind of like the in-house studio musicians who you'd call on. There's like, we could go off on a tangent about them, but some of the songwriters of those songs that you said kind of sounded like other bands were people like Neil Diamond and Carole King. Like they wrote the Monkees songs too. So like everything was stacked like so that the Monkees would be successful. The best producers, the best songwriters, the best musicians. And even though they could play their music, eventually they could learn the songs that they supposedly performed and play them live. Like because of how it started, that's how they get that reputation of they couldn't play their instruments, even though they actually could. I mean, not as well as it sounded on the record, but they could, work their way through it. But no, it was stacked to do that, right? Like they were trying to do a Beatles thing. They were trying to do whatever kind of the hits were kind of recreated for TV, and it worked. But yeah, so as far as the Monkees and me, my aunt was a big Monkees fan. And that's actually where I discovered the movie Head in the 90s on a VHS tape she had. And it was weird. And we watched it and we were like, what is this as a kid in the 90s? So I have been familiar with Head for a very long time. So by the time it arrived, 2 years after the Monkees started in 68, the Monkees were even more at a crossroads because they were exploding as television created teen idols. And they spent most of their time, though, pushing back against that machine that made them famous, because a lot of the members were actually into the kind of like underground music of the time, or not even underground, but more like the experimental Beatles kind of stuff, like the counterculture, if you will, like, you know, maybe fans of Lou Reed, we might say. But if we do a callback to last time, so they were like always fighting to get more control over the music they put out, and they wanted to prove that they could play their instruments, and they wanted to shed that bubblegum image, and kind of be accepted into the counterculture. Because even though some of the bands of those like appreciated the Monkees, the fans did not. So had emerged from all of that kind of tension, and it could have been what fans expected when the Monkees were making a movie. They could have done a long, hour and a half episode, which was, the episodes were kind of out of the norm from the other stuff on TV, but they were still accessible to like a young audience. So they could have done that Monkees like formula from the get-go, but instead they like deconstructed the Monkees image completely, and they delivered something like weird, surreal, fragmented, and deliberately confrontational to their roots, like where they came from. They were making fun of the fact that they were like manufactured. So let's get into, movie, music, style, all of it together is what we're talking about here. And I want to talk about how you would describe Head to someone unfamiliar with it. Whoever wants to take that first. How would you, someone's going to sit down and watch this movie and they're like, hey, what's this thing like? What would you tell them?
To quote the great Rick James, cocaine's a hell of a drug.
All right.
That's how it felt. And from some of the interviews I've listened to with the producers, it kind of sounds like they might have been dabbling a little in some things. And it totally feels like that. I mean, it feels like a bunch of short film ideas that happen to have the Monkees in it compiled together. Is probably the best description I could give.
So I'll build on that. So if I would explain it to someone, I would say it's a good 20 years ahead of its time. It's essentially a plop of music videos loosely tied together, right? If MTV was around at the time, they would have been all over that. It's kind of like almost a prelude to what MTV and the artists that were originally on MTV just pumping out music videos, like Devo, as an example, purposely putting out weird videos for MTV. I could totally see this being that. Then on top of it, you kind of loop in that whole, like, this is the end of the Monkees. This is kind of a little bit of a FU to the industry, kind of a little bit, in my opinion, that the Monkees kind of were like, hey, this is what we're going to do. We don't care. This is what we're going to do, how we're going to do it. It's going to be really weird. All the knocks on the music industry, like Coca-Cola in the film, all that kind of stuff, commercialization. So, but I would generally call it a weird plop together of music videos, a good 20 years ahead of its time, with a layer of cocaine and pot, probably.
Probably. Yeah.
I would probably call it like a psychedelic dream trip from somebody that likes the Beatles, because it felt, in a lot of points, it felt very Beatles movie style. And then you look back on what they say Jack Nicholson, his involvement was, and that he was on marijuana when he came up with the idea, and when he mixed the album, he was on LSD. I mean, that's the 60s for you. And if you think about Jack Nicholson doing it too, yeah, I'm sure he was tuned into the Beatles when he was thinking about it.
In addition to that, I agree with everything you say, because all of those pieces kind of hold a piece to it. And yeah, the Monkees have been mentioned as pioneers of music videos, because even like the montages in the show kind of had a music video feel. So you kind of get that, and they definitely, it's like almost like they're creating the genre without knowing it, because of those drug addled edits of Nicholson and Rafelson and all those guys. But what, so does this, do you think, so it's kind of a hodgepodge, it's stream of consciousness style, this, that, the next thing, circle back, all that kind of stuff, a giant eye, a desert, a bridge. Does the stream of consciousness style enhance the message of the story? I don't know if I should call it a story, the message of the film and album that they were trying to get across, or does it make it harder to get the message? Like watching it, could you get what they were trying to say from the stream of consciousness, or was it kind of hard to dissect?
I think it made it harder watching it to get the idea. If you read about what, they're trying to break free of their direction, break free of the people that created them, it makes more sense to read about it than it does to try and watch this like hodgepodge of scene after scene. You're sitting there and all of a sudden they're all making out with the same girl, and you're going, I thought that guy just killed himself. There's no exposition to say like, and then before he killed himself, this is what happened.
Yeah, I watched all the way through probably 3 or 4 times. The first time I absolutely hated it.
Yeah. I get that.
Because I was like, I don't get it. It felt like, you're looking in at a group that has a lot of inside jokes and history, and you're missing out. And so I ended up after the fact kind of reading more about, what was going on with the Monkees at the time, and also like trying to just look in on what they were showing for what was this symbolic of. And so like then revisiting it each time, I started to pick up a little bit better on what they were trying to do. So for me, it's not very effective for the casual viewer. If you're willing to dive deeper, yeah, you're going to get a lot more out of it. You're going to enjoy it much, much more greatly than, a one-time passerby who doesn't know anything about what they're looking at. That's my opinion, though.
I'll agree with Mike's thought, because I had the same kind of general impression when I first watched it. I'm like, I'm so confused, right? It didn't really kind of like a good film, or even just a decent film. Kind of by the end, you have like an idea where it was going, how it all fit together. Like by the time I watched it the first time, I'm like, I still have no idea, like maybe a little bit of a grasp of like what they're trying to do. But I'm like, this makes no sense. I think your comment, which I didn't think of, makes a lot of sense. It feels like a lot of like inside jokes, inside stories that they just kind of push together a little bit. But I think for someone who wants to watch it 4, 5, 6 times, right, and kind of really immerse themselves in it, I think that's where it becomes like a better experience of a film. I mean, I don't know if
someone who wants to wrap their head around it.
But I think a good example of my thought is, I don't know if any of you watched Quentin Tarantino. There was a little clip on YouTube of how he really likes, he thought it was I think he called it a masterpiece. But again, he's someone who's going to like watch a film like 50 times, right? And pick apart every little scene and every little detail, because that's just the filmmaker and the person that he is, right? As a casual watch, I think it's a hard one, right? But if someone really wants to dive into all the details, I think that's where it becomes an interesting one. So it's kind of, depending on who you ask and what kind of viewer they are or what they're trying to get out of it, I think your answer could really vary.
Well, and like Tarantino's, this is his vibe.
Yeah.
Oh
You
yeah,
know what I
totally.
mean? Like in the same way
Totally.
that like David Lynch and Sunset Boulevard, like that's his vibe. Like this is, you could see that you could just guess that he would have loved this movie. Like looking at some of those Pulp Fiction and stuff, it's like, yeah, I get it.
Except I think he would have called the movie Feet.
I like that. It's
With
the sequel that never
starred
got
Uma
made.
Thurman.
No. Oh man. But yeah, so it is kind of a contradiction. Head itself, like it's a terrible movie on the first watch for sure. But it maybe is a great movie if you watch it 100 times and kind of like overanalyze it. So it's kind of a conundrum, and the Monkees kind of always were like full of contradictions, and like the biggest one surrounding Head in their whole careers really is that they were always kind of actively rebelling against the manufactured image, like even from the beginning. When like the musicians signed up for it, Nesmith and Torque, they were like, well, we're gonna write the songs, right? And they're like, no, we already got the songs, you're just gonna play them, but you're not gonna play them yet, you're just gonna pretend to play them. And that kind of like rubbed them the wrong way. So like even from the beginning, it was always kind of a contradiction of like where they felt where they were supposed to be. So the biggest contradiction behind Head is that they were doing this rebellious movie against what the Monkees were, alongside the producers who created the Monkees. So they were all doing this together. Bob Rafelson and Bert Schneider had built the Monkees as the television phenomenon. They got the marketing behind it. They built the concept. They got all the songwriters and musicians involved. They put the tours on. They did the whole thing. So they were like also in, like, they're the ones who created the monster, but they're also the ones who helped them create Head, which was essentially going to deconstruct what the Monkees were. So it's that strange collision, the band trying to escape its corporate identity with the people who actually architected that identity. And they're both together dismantling it from within with the help of course, Jack Nicholson, who shaped the screenplay. And then he like mixed and arranged the soundtrack itself. Like he put together all of those like sound clips and the, you know, like the tracks together in a way that he tried to tell the same story, if you could call it that, in audio. So it becomes this transition period between this, like the television stardom and what the Monkees were, and actually like the precursor to the new Hollywood filmmaking, because Rafelson after Head would go on to produce Easy Rider with the money that he made from the Monkees. And that movie kind of helped redefine American cinema into the 70s. And his production company, BBS, like became like the go-to kind of independent film studio going forward, kind of breaking all the boundaries. So knowing that piece of the puzzle and thinking about Head, the Monkees thought that they could use this to springboard themselves into the next part of their career. I don't know if Rafelson saw it that way, but is Head more about destroying the Monkees' image and tearing it down so they wouldn't exist anymore, or redefining it like the band maybe thought it could be? And does it feel more like the end of the Monkees and the beginning of BBS Productions, or like a new start, fresh new start for the Monkees?
It felt like a closure. It felt like the end. Like I mean, if you consider the fact that they don't even own the right to their own logo, so to just, it felt like they were just kind of taking the scorched earth approach to, you know, getting out. Like, we're going to destroy our image so bad, and we'll be forgotten about, and we'll move on and do our own thing. And I also think that Rafelson, he's mostly concerned with, I'm going to move on to my next gig. I have options. I have money. I'll help these kids do what they want, which is to get out and not be associated. Because, I mean, the whole movie is designed like Rob had said, kind of like, screw you guys, we're doing what we want to do because you didn't want to let us, be our own real band. But at the same time, you're kind of saying, screw you guys, the fans that have been with us, that supported us. So it definitely feels like this is the end.
I think the interesting thing too, I mean, obviously we couldn't do if we were back when they were making the movie, but we're able to look back and say, well, what if it had been a financial success? It probably would have been, well, this is just a new era, but it wasn't. It was a terrible failure financially. So we can easily say, well, nuts to that, let's go.
You started this piece with saying that like this springboarded them to produce Easy Rider with the money they were going to make from the Monkees. What money? They made nothing.
Well, they made nothing on this movie.
TV show.
They made a ton on the records and the TV show. So he had all that money in the bank.
That's true.
That's the money that went.
True.
Like he took that money and ran to the independent films.
I was about to say because they didn't make a nickel off of this thing, and not even close. If anything, they had to go to the washer for this one. But anyway, yeah, I Mike mentioned it earlier. I definitely felt this was kind of like a forget you guys. We're going to destroy it. Scorched earth. I think you said, Mike, is a really good way to put it. Of like we're gonna just tear this mother down, right? And you guys, good luck trying to like salvage any piece of it because we're done with the Monkees. But it would have been interesting to your point, Jagoda, like if it actually was successful, like what were they gonna do?
They probably
like,
would have come out wearing
motorcycle
jackets and being the stars of Easy Rider.
Yeah,
forget Peter Fonda.
But yeah, it's interesting. What would have happened if like it did actually become successessful? It would have been very interesting because people would have tried to make money off of them. They would have tried to squeeze every nickel and dime out of that they possibly could have.
Because I mean, the Monkees did continue on after this in weird like alternate lineups, but because this movie came out after the show had been canceled, and had been off the air for like. It would have been, like half a year, like 6 months or so. And so by the time the Monkees made new music around and after this album, like even with this album, which we're going to get into the music next, because I am trying to spin this into a concept album. But when they made new music after this, like it was not promoted. It was not received. It didn't have the marketing machine anymore. So like if it was a success, maybe they would have had a marketing machine continuation going forward with this new era of the Monkees. But that was not the case.
And so what I find interesting about that whole, like, we want to, be serious and be our own band and kind of control our own destiny creatively. I mean, you listen to some of these interviews with Mickey Dolenz, and he pretty much is just throwing Michael Nesmith under the bus, saying like, well, this is what he wanted. He wanted to do this thing and have more control. And we were just like, whatever. Okay. We're just along for the ride sort of thing. So it's interesting from that perspective of how much influence and control Nesmith was wielding amongst just the four of them. So who knows? Maybe they would have been less combative if he had been more, a willing participant in the facade of the Monkees.
For sure. And that's, I mean, it was that you had that kind of the conflict, definitely. Like you kind of hit the core of it is that Nesmith was like the musician side and like Torque was on the musician side, but Nesmith and Torque also got in fights with each other. And then like the actor side was Dolenz and Davy Jones, and like they weren't necessarily aligned either. So it was always one of those, it was kind of a weird situation where like, when they say like, if you're in a group of three, like two people or like one person always thinks the other two are conspiring against them kind of thing. But this was like that, but like in a four. So like, they had that. And like, it was like, everyone was kind of pulling for their thing. And Nesmith does often get the reputation as being kind of the silent behind the scenes, like guy pushing for the musical. Not even be silent behind the scenes, because he did some pretty high profile interviews that kind of lit the fire under the whole operation early on too, where like he told the press basically that, yeah, we don't play our own instruments on the records. They won't let us, but we want to, kind of thing. So he might have been the one trying to burn this thing to the ground since the beginning, because he wanted to be a legitimate musician. And let's get into the music, because the Monkees actually, in this weird like behind the scenes thing, like the Monkees fans loved the Monkees. The fans of other music did not love the Monkees. Like if you liked the Beatles or you liked the Who, you probably disliked the Monkees or were apathetic to them at best. So I mean, yeah. So like the Monkees, though, behind the scenes existed in like a close proximity to that musical experimentation scene in the 60s. They actually tried to break the Jimi Hendrix experience to their audience by bringing him on tour with them as an opening act, because they loved his music. And then they had also connections to the Beatles. They were some of the Monkees members were actually in the studio listening to the Sgt. Pepper sessions as the Beatles were recording and mixing them, because they were friends of the Beatles, because the Beatles really enjoyed the TV show, because I mean, it was kind of a TV show about what they experienced as a young band in a way. So it's kind of like They See Me. The Beatles, the Who, Frank Zappa were all like friends and fans of the show, or at least connected to them in some way. And all those groups and bands had those big genre defining concept albums in the late 60s. And Head was kind of like the Monkees, seeing what was happening with their friends and wanting to do their own kind of large scale artistic album statement kind of thing. And it attempts to do that in the audio and the video. But we're going to talk about the album, because it's trying to do the same thing as the movie, with kind of like a music concrete inspired like audio clip transitional thing, with dialogue from the movie and clips from other things that appear in the movie, and then like these kind of weird sound transitions when they can, and studio editing. So let's talk about the album itself here for a little while. So does the album, does it work as a concept album even without the film? Like if you listen to the album, does it feel like a concept album? Did they attempted to make some sort of artistic statement, movie concept album combo? Were they successful in the album part?
I would say as an album alone, no. But in concert with the film, you could maybe say yes.
Yeah, I felt like listening to the album, I'm like, what is this? You don't get any of the context that the film gives. So, I mean, other than the fact that it's an album that the Monkees worked on all the songs, I'd be like, do these people even connect to each other? Like, you could have told. I felt like the album, if you just sat somebody down, said, here, listen to this, they wouldn't know if it was the same band for the entire thing or if it was different people, like different artists coming in and coming out. So without the film, I don't think it succeeds at all as a concept or even an album.
Or even an album. I love that.
It had some good points, but as an album together...
Yeah, it's incredibly short too. It's 30 minutes, and because I listened to it first a couple times before I even watched the movie, and so it made even less sense, like you guys are saying. But listening to it, like, it's reusing music, it's recycling certain clips from other tracks on the album. So it felt like, hey, we have like 4 or 5 solid songs, but we need to lengthen it out. And that's what it felt like. Like they didn't, it's like this. It should have been an EP probably, but then like someone's like, let's stretch this out. And yeah, like Andrew said, yeah, and I mentioned before, like you can feel or detect the DNA of other songwriters. It's not one creative band that is putting this all together. Like specifically, what was it? It's Daddy's song. Yeah. Like I heard that, I was like, oh, this feels so familiar. And so when I looked it up and found that Harry Nilsson had been the songwriter for it, I was like, that makes sense. That feels exactly like him. That is his DNA. That what I'm picking up. So, but again, I wouldn't be able to say that this is a concept album having not watched the film.
So that's where I want to like. So, and you said you listened to it first. When you listen to it, this is the thing I want. So the Monkees were, we'll call it the fabricated band, the prefab four, as they were called sometimes, because they were prefabricated, like the Beatles Fab Four. But they were the fake band trying to make popular music. In this case, they were trying to make a concept album. When you listened to it first, did you say, wait a minute, this is not a concept album? Or did it disguise itself enough that you would be like, I'd buy that as a concept album? Yeah, I guess that was a concept album. The Monkees version of a concept album, a fake concept album. No?
I would not detect there was any intent of saying that these are all connected songs in some way in subject matter. I didn't pick up on it.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
I mean, you go from Daddy's song to Dandruff, and I go, what? How in the world does that get?
Yeah. And I'd like a glass of gravy with a little hair on it.
Cup of cold gravy with a hair in it.
Yeah. That always makes me crack up when I hear that line in the album. But anyways, all right. So album is, I mean, it's not written by one person. It is kind of a retconned concept album in that there are a lot of different songwriters, some in the band. Peter Tork wrote some songs, some great songs too. And then you had those, songwriters, the studio songwriters coming in to write those also. And it was then tried to retroactively package it as a concept album by Jack Nicholson, kind of editing those sound bites into it. But the tracks on their own, did you find any standout tracks? Were there great, like this song was my favorite, or this song was horrible? Standout for negative or positive?
I mean, it's kind of a double-edged sword, because I liked Daddy's song because it had such a weird, it was like an upbeat song about a boy being abandoned by his father. So I liked that kind of juxtaposition of feelings. But again, it's like you go, oh, good song, and then it makes it feel less and less like a concept album, because it's like it's got nothing to do with anything else. So I don't know. It's kind of like finding a song that I liked made it feel less of what the album should be. If that makes any sense.
For sure.
I'll say that I did have some standout tracks. I also agree with Jagoda. I did enjoy Daddy's song for the musical aspect of it. In the same way, the opposite end of the album, the Porpoise song, right? Those were kind of two that were, I'll give credit to the songwriters on those. They definitely had some really good earworms, because they've gotten stuck in my head over the last number of weeks since you picked this one. But I think, Mike, you had a good point. Like, this felt more like an EP, right? It was only a handful of, like, actually, I think, usable, like, really good songs, and it just was filler. I hate to say it. Sorry, Monkees.
Well, they didn't write most of them, so they're okay, probably.
Apologize to whoever else it is.
But like the one standout track that's actually written by Nesmith, Circle Sky, like that one had a more grittier rock and roll type vibe to it. And so you could get a good understanding of like where his head's at, what direction he would like to move in, which is kind of interesting. Because it feels I could totally see him listening to a band like Cream and being like, yeah, we should do stuff more like this, and everyone else would be like, okay, we'll follow you, and I think that's the direction he would prefer to head in. But head in.
How many head puns? No.
But yeah, like he didn't really have a whole lot of other songs on the title, and like I enjoy each of the main songs. So like the Porpoise song, I enjoy Circle Sky for what it is. It feels like a generic late 60s rock anthem. And Daddy's song, again, Harry Nilsson, I pick up on that. I love his music, so like I'm jamming with that. So if you pare it down to maybe those like 4 or 5 main songs, you got a short EP of like this hodgepodge of different styles combined.
All right, I'm going to flip the whole thing on its head. Another head pun real quick and ask this question. Is that everything you described, is that actually the concept, that it is so disjointed and it's a sprinkling of the band trying to write songs, those ones getting overshadowed by the ones that are coming in from the studio and then pushing for their own styles in their own voice in the album, and you get a song like Daddy's Song, which if you know the history of the band, it's one of those things where the more you watch it, the more you know. But Davy Jones started from Broadway. So that is his point of view in that song. Mickey Dolenz does the vocals on the Porpoise song that was written by the studio musicians, but the studio musicians often loved his voice and would write for him as being the lead singer. Nesmith, Circle Sky, does his own thing. You get like Can You Dig It? Torque wrote it, Dolenz sings it. So you kind of get like Torque would write for others. I mean, he wrote Do I Have to Do This All Over Again? And he sings that also. So is it like, could I make an argument that the disjointedness of it goes to the theme, like goes along with the theme of the movie and the album, being that they want to burn this thing to the ground and they make bad choices to burn this thing to the ground, but also to let their voices be heard? Is that the concept?
It's a terrible concept idea if it was.
I didn't say it was a good concept. I just said, is that a concept that this all aligns to? In the same way that Lou Reed had a great concept but didn't execute it well, you could have a terrible concept.
He did not have a good concept. That was a terrible idea.
But it worked other times. I'm saying his concept was Edgar Allan Poe. He just didn't do it right, because we heard that there's other albums that did it right. But the Monkees concept was deconstructing this band from the inside out, from its bubblegum, image, to being something that's more personal to what they actually were. Does it do that?
I think the film maybe tries to do that. The album doesn't do it. The album, I think, was more like, hey, we got this pile of money. Let's do whatever we can, what we want to do. Last, like, hurrah. I'm going to do this crazy, like, trippy song. I'm going to do this dance number, right?
I need a tax write-off.
The album side of the tax.
Is that is a tax write-off the concept of this album?
It sounds like a next good arc
Yeah, I
for
mean,
the podcast.
Tax write-offs.
I don't know. I feel like if that was the intention with the album, then why even have Jack Nicholson involved with it? Like, it doesn't.
Good point.
You would think then it would be the band members mixing the album and being in charge of it, or at
Because
the
they didn't
very
know how to
least,
do any of that.
producers. Well, that's the thing. Or at the very least, have the producers don't be like, oh, and Jack Nicholson put it together. Jack Nicholson's not going to be so in depth with them that he's like, we're deconstructing every little thing. Yeah,
It's true.
yeah.
Yeah. I was just trying something there. I was doing a Hail Mary at the end here to try to hit it. But it seems like we'd much rather talk about the movie itself. So let's go back to the movie for one more moment before we wrap up. Well, we got a couple more questions here I want to talk about. So the movie, if we get back to the movie, and we know that it is kind of we've already alluded to it being a commercial flop, but it was still commercial. It was still the Monkees movie, even though the marketing kind of totally disregarded that. Like some of the commercials would just like show a dude's head close up with head, and they didn't show things from the movie, and they would like talk about what the movie was but not say what it was. A lot of times too, it wasn't billed with the Monkees in the title. It was just like, come see this new avant-garde movie, Head. And then people who went to see it in that form, you know, didn't like it because they saw it was the Monkees and they felt they were bait and switched. And then other people who went to go see the Monkees movie didn't like it because of what it was. And we're going to get more into that whole thing. But as far as the commercialism of it, the movie itself is packed with random celebrity cameos. Some of my favorites are Frank Zappa. He's in there. He also was in a Monkees episode in the last season. He showed up. It has Disney legend Annette Funicello. She makes an appearance, so she would have been a big deal. She was like in her beach movies at the same time. And it has Green Bay Packers Hall of Famer Ray Nitschke, who makes an appearance as kind of an army football player kind of dude who, you know, is just like walloping. Like anyways, we get these cameos. You could also say we get cameos from Jack Nicholson, but like Jack Nicholson at this time is not the Jack Nicholson we know today. He wouldn't be the household recognizable name. He was more the behind the scenes guy at this point. But you do get, he's kind of like a counterculture person, you know, like he would be in the underground of like what's cool and hip to the hippies and the people who are in the know. And then you get like Zappa's another one of those, like the cool kids would know Zappa. But then like everybody knows Annette, and everyone who watches sports knows, you know, Super Bowl champ, 2-time Super Bowl champ at this point, Ray Nitschke. So I have to just like, you know, drive those Annette and Ray out here because those are my other loves of things. But anyways, do those celebrity cameos, and I know it's like those aren't our celebrities personally, but like do those things, do you think they drive deeper at the weirdness of it and like make the satire happen more? Like do they make that part of it more successful, or are they an attempt to make the movie more accessible to audiences everywhere?
I think that it helps with the idea that they're in all these little scenes and being told what to do. It helps make that more believable to have actual recognizable, oh, look, there's Terry Garr. Oh, there's, you know. Do I think it helps with their overall concept? No. Because, I mean, the Monkees had their TV show, they had celebrity guest appearances. They're trying to break away from that. So if you're going to then have a bunch of guest celebrities, it gets very confusing if they're really breaking away from it or just still being like, hey, look who it is. It's Ray Nitschke. It's so-and-so. It's, you know, it confuses the concept, I think.
I'm not sure that these celebrity appearances like do much for the film. I mean, maybe they was kind of a glass grasp of like, let's try to pump some like familiarity into it. But I will say this. If Head was the inspiration for 200 Motels, then I am really, really mad at the Monkees because that movie was so bad.
I kept thinking about
Frank
that
Zappa
movie
being
when I
in
was
this.
watching it.
So that's that. So this is kind of that. If we get into that cycle, so that Frank Zappa's movie 200 Motels may have been inspired by this. Let's be honest. He was a part of making this. It's also said a lot of times too that Head, the mixing of the album itself was inspired by Lumpy Gravy, the Frank Zappa album, because it uses a lot of audio quote clip type things mixed in with music randomly. So it's like a cycle of Zappa and the Monkees kind of inspiring each other, maybe.
200 Motels, the worst.
The child of
movie
that
I've
was
ever
200 Motels. Oh, so bad.
Yeah.
So bad.
So, and there's, I mean, and it's kind of, the Head came first. 200 Motels is after this. So it's like, I mean, maybe this was that innovative thing. Maybe they finally did break into the counterculture with this terribly uncommercial flop. So Head failed commercially when it was released. A lot of it we kind of talked about before that last one. You had it kind of alienated their fan base, but the Monkees themselves were alienating to the fan base they wanted. But over time, it's kind of become a cult classic. I think it's that thing Mike jumped onto earlier with like the more rewatches you do of it, the more you can start to dig in. And I think that, you know, we get that cult classic thing. So at this point, we kind of want to be like talking about, was it a failed experiment, or was it just too like ahead of its time in a way? Like it was too strange and weird and self-aware and ambitious for its moment. So why, like, and maybe it was, like we said, ahead of its time, but like, why do you think it failed then versus becoming a, you know, what do you think? Like, what are the, I guess what I'm trying to get at is, what are the redeeming factors of it that caused it to become somewhat of a cult classic?
Well, I'm going to just start by saying that I think that the failure occurred because you're alienating your fan base. The people who have shown loyalty and love have gone out, purchased your albums, watched your TV show religiously. The reason that you are even around is because of them. If it was a flop, if the show had been a flop in season 1, I don't know that we probably wouldn't have even gotten to the point where they had an option to make a movie. So to just kind of say, you know what, screw our fans because they liked the fake us. Well, you're a fake band. You were created to be a fake band. That was your role, and your TV show was being canceled, and you took the approach of, oh, okay, well, because they're trying to ruin us. It's like, no, they're not trying to ruin you. Shows get canceled all the time. Star Trek, didn't the original series only last for 2 seasons?
3, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, they did in the 60s.
Something like that.
2 or 3, that's all you get.
But I mean, they were very long seasons. Like there's a ton of episodes. But again, you were a show. Your show was canceled. Why you weren't successful in getting into the counterculture market is because they already saw through you as this corporate-owned creation. So to try to like, sever ties and be like, oh no, now we're really cool. We're going to do our own thing, and you're going to see us for who we really are. But at the same time, still have other people writing your music. And you're performing it. You're not actually making that change. Like So like I keep saying it, but bands like Cream and you mentioned Hendrix, they're out there and they're doing their own thing. They're writing their own songs, performing their own styles, and being really innovative and creative in the rock industry. The Monkees just can't get in there because, well, no one believes them. No one's taking them seriously. So now you fast forward to why it becomes such a cult classic is because we have hindsight. We can look back. We can see what they were going through from like a band standpoint and what they were hoping to accomplish, and we can find appreciation that, oh yeah, they were just really controlled and unhappy, and the studio was really trying to put these guys through the ringer to squeeze as much money as they could out of them. So it could kind of give you that appreciation for the movie when the movie's like, screw the industry. You're not going to control us anymore. And you know what? We're going to try to tank this whole brand that you created. So I think that's where you get, the success from a cult classic standpoint.
Is it? I have one more to kind of go along with that, but I think you kind of wrapped it up quite nicely. So we'll see if I keep this one in there. But is Head a misunderstood masterpiece? Like looking at it from the context of the time, like you said, Mike, like at the time, no one had any clue of like any of the story behind it. And we only kind of get that through hindsight and reading about the Monkees and hearing what they say about their career themselves. But was it a misunderstood masterpiece or like a fascinating mess of things or both? What do you guys think?
I don't know about masterpiece, but I would say that there's a lot of interesting ideas that they're exploring from both a cinematography and film perspective, as well as the including of like musique concrète into some of their songs. Like, because there's certain elements, like I was listening to this and it triggers my mind to like go on tangents. That's just how my brain's wired. So like hearing like on the album the thumping of a heart, hearing people laughing, immediately my mind goes to Pink Floyd Dark Side of the Moon. And I was like, were they inspired or pulled inspiration from like these sonic elements included into their music? Maybe. So I think, yeah, it probably was ahead of their time, but in terms of like a masterpiece, I don't know about that. I wouldn't go that far.
Yeah,
I think fascinating mess is the right way to put it. I think that's Eric. I think you chose your words very appropriately in your question, because masterpiece now. But I think in the world of like, I mean, at the time VHS coming out or whatever was out at the home video, and then now with like watches at like or reshowings at places like the Music Box, right? I think that's where you're not watching this as a whole. I think someone who watches this again and again and again is to like pick out those Easter eggs, pick out those little tidbits to kind of really dive into the details, not necessarily the story as a whole. So fascinating mess to pick apart, but still a mess.
Yeah, because to me, it's like to have a masterpiece, it means you mastered something. And
Like,
there's, I mean, honestly, with the way that this mess is between the control of the band members as a band and individually versus the producers versus all the musicians that they brought in versus Jack Nicholson's input. You can't master anything with that many different people having all their input. It has to be like something that a set, either one person or like one group that is in unison. Have them just make all these decisions and say this is what it is. So to try and prove that the fake band like the Monkees had all of those decisions planned out to make all of these, comments on their own life, I don't see it. I see it more of a mess. not a planned masterpiece.
I don't have this question, but I'm going to ask it. Willem Dafoe. I think he would be the giant big Victor dude. But if you got a different one, give me.
He would either be that or that weird guy that just shows up yelling at them.
Or
who's like the big
cop.
giant. He's got his hair being sucked, like his hair being sucked by the vacuum, and the monkeys coming out of his hair. That could be Defoe.
Oh, that could be the dandruff guy. Yep. Yeah, the big Victor. The police officer would be cool too. Maybe you just remake Head and Willem Dafoe is every character. I know we've said that before, but that could make
our solution.
even weirder. It could be even weirder. All right. So at this point, I think we've.
I'm just thinking about that.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I'm just thinking about that. The second scene after the bridge in Porpoise and Mermaids, where if Willem Dafoe was making out with himself.
4 times in different clothes. That would
go off the rails quick.
Yes. But we do have to score this thing. And so let me bring up the scoreboard and we'll see how it goes. Just to reiterate where we were at, Abigail by King Diamond, which I think was, I'm going to commentary and tell my thoughts on it now, which was probably the most straightforward concept album we've gotten from this thing. And it just gets weirder from there, right? It just kind of spirals out from Abigail. So Abigail, even though it doesn't, we go back in time at the end. Abigail got a 48. Dyspepsy, with the Negative Land maybe masterpiece, got a 52. The Raven by Lou Reed, which was an interesting, we'll call that one a fascinating mess too. Or maybe not even fascinating, maybe just a mess. Just kidding. It was fascinating still. That one got a 38, and now we have the Monkees' Head. And we'll have to see where we go with that. And I have to find the button that I click to show our scores. That's the wrong button. This is the correct button. No, wrong way. Cut that. Spoiler alert. I hit the wrong way. So the Monkees' Head, we got Rob up here first on the list. Oh no, why can't I do? Oh, I have to switch to the other one. I have too many other ones to click. All right. Rob, what did you think of Head? Give us your scores for rarity, theme, production value, and enjoyment.
All right. So for rarity, I kind of waffled in this one a little bit because obviously the Monkees, no one's going to say the Monkees are rare, right? No one's going to say that. Everybody has any concept of the Beatles or 60s music will know of the Monkees, but I really never knew. I didn't know this movie existed. So kind of a balance between the two. And then the album, I never heard this album. So kind of I'm gonna give it they can't do halves. So I'm gonna give you the benefit of the doubt, Eric. I'm gonna give you a 3 for rarity.
I like it.
For theme, I think this is where the stone starts to sink in the ocean here a little bit. So for theme, like it really being a concept album, because that was the theme, not a concept film or not a film album, right? I hate to say it, I'm giving it a 1 because I just don't see it.
Fair.
As a concept
I
album
took a risk.
myself.
Fair.
For production value, this is where I think there's, Mike, you made some good comments of earlier, some of the stuff they tried and they did was really interesting, right? Visually, especially in the film, even in the album itself, some parts where they're throwing in kind of the audio clips from the film. It was, there were parts that I truly enjoyed. So I'm going to give you a 4 on that aspect of it. Some interesting pieces. Now, when it comes to enjoyment, there were some things, and I'll show a little bit of mercy. I'm going to give you a 2. and the enjoyment.
Ooh.
Because this is certainly not a film or an album that I'm going to come back to listen to probably or watch. Definitely not watch. Will they pop up in my Spotify account occasionally when I put on random? Maybe. Will I hit skip? Maybe. So, but I'll give you the benefit of that. I'll give you a 2 on enjoyment. I'm waiting in anticipation of Mike's like takedown of this.
I have a lawnmower guy going around the yard, so
gotcha.
I muted myself. So rarity, it's the Monkees. It's pretty well known. You got Jack Nicholson involved, which, you know, there's plenty of interviews out there kind of describing what this is, what it was about, and, you know, but also, like, I had never heard of it. My parents had never heard of it, and they were alive during the period. So, I mean, I guess I'll probably take the same take and approach that Rob has. I'm going to give it middle of the road because it is such a bizarre thing. And technically, they're not even really themselves in the band technically in the movie because it's separate from the show, and the Monkees logo doesn't appear because they're not allowed to because they didn't have permission for it. So there's a lot of weird things even outside of the film that are going on. Theme, yeah, it's hard because, like, if I just listened to the album, I'd say no, like it's just not happening. But what are we rating it on both the movie and?
I mean, that's kind of up to you, I would say.
Okay.
And I mean, I made
squeezing out points here is what he's doing right now.
Though, I made you watch both because I agree with you that, like, even though it's considered a concept album on its standalone self, I think it can't exist without the other. In much the same way that the Monkees' music could not exist to the success that it had without the visuals of the TV show. So, like, the Monkees' visuals and music are always hand in hand. So that's why I did make you do both.
Okay.
You know, but you can judge it however you see fit.
So I'll go with, you know, they're a package deal. I'm gonna give it a 2. Production value. I mean, it was good. There's, I mean, like the sets and everything. I mean, they all feel like they're out of a TV show or repurposed props from other things, probably. I mean, I could totally see them like walking around a studio lot and be like, "Hey, wouldn't it be cool if we use some of that that's just been thrown away and we'll make a scene out of that." Like the whole vacuum cleaner bit. Like I feel like that probably. I have no idea. I mean, production. I mean, it's fine. I'd say it's 4. And enjoyment. Subsequent watches, I enjoyed it better. Will I revisit the movie? I think I've explored it as much as I want to. Like I've gotten it. I understand. And I don't think I need to watch it anymore. But in terms of the album, if some of those songs that we talked about come up on Spotify, I won't mind. I'll listen to them. So, enjoyment, I guess I'm gonna go. Let's see. I guess I'm gonna go 3.
Not too shabby.
Oh.
Yeah, well, I'm going to go a little against the grain here on rarity because, I mean, we're not, from my perspective, we're not looking at the Monkees. Yes, it is the Monkees, but I mean, I never heard of them having a movie / album combo. I mean, I told my mom about it what we were doing the podcast on, and she was a big Monkees fan, and she was like, I vaguely remember them having a movie, but she had no clue. So I'm actually going to give it a full 5 for Riri.
Woo!
Theme, if it was just the album, I would say a 1. But with the movie kind of getting some context and actually having some kind of, albeit scarce, plot, I'm going to give it a 2 on theme. Production value, kind of like, along with has already been said, a lot of the things felt like TV props. When they were the dandruff and they had the giant hair, I kept thinking, are those garbage bags? What are those? I had no idea. I was like, oh, it's hair. Oh, okay. I'll give it a 3.
Nice.
Yeah. Enjoyment. I mean, I'm not going to rewatch it. I got what I needed out of it, but it gets a little extra something from me because of the ridiculous jokes, like the hair with the gravy in it. So I'll give that a 3 actually for enjoyment.
Nice.
So
if I did my math correctly. So that puts it at a 35, which, if I did my math correctly, 35 is the lowest score. But I will tell you, I am happy with that 35 because this is why you guys had to go. I don't know. And I love to make a pick, even if it's bad, that people have to think about. So I won in that sense.
Oh, no.
I'll take it.
No. I was thinking just how low my score needed to be.
No. What I would say is I've watched this more times than St. Elmo's Fire. So just saying.
That's something. That is something. That is something. And that's gonna, maybe I'm playing golf with these. I'm trying to get the lowest score every time. But no, I think my mission was to get you guys to watch this weird thing and try to make sense of it, and I think my mission was accomplished. So I'll take my 35 with pride. Which doesn't win us anything, but we do have some winners who picked the theme for next time, and it was a tie between Rob, surprise, because Rob tends to win everything, and Andrew. So who's going to do the right? Who's going to do the honors of telling us what our summer theme is going to be?
all right. So Rob and I put our heads together, and we decided that we haven't done anything sports related really. So we are going to have the summer of sports. Now for this, of course, we like to introduce a little bit of a game element. So rather than just say, okay, pick any sport, any movie, we're going to do movies based on these Uno cards. So how do you ask that? Does that work? Well, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I have 6 sports or sports categories. And I'm going to shuffle these cards up. And what we're going to do is I have a number assigned to each sport or sport category. And we are going to start from the lowest score on that arc and go up all the way to the tied winner score and get our cards. So, Eric, we're going to start with you.
I always have the lowest.
You want it from top, bottom? Where do you want it? Middle.
Go right from the top. Right from the top.
Right from the top. All right, you get
your goodness
the number 1, which means you get hockey.
Okay, hockey. Okay, Mighty Ducks is too is too popular.
No.
But what about
You're gonna get
score?
you're gonna get a 4. You're gonna get a 4 score on that one if you do that one.
4 score
All right.
and 7 years ago.
All right, Mike.
All right, hockey.
Top, bottom, middle,
Let's just continue at the top.
just top. Get number 5, which means that you get American football. Da-da-da. All right.
That's a good one.
No trading now. No trading there.
I mean, in sports, they trade often. So,
No. Not allowed. Not allowed.
Do I get a first round pick or a second round?
right?
All right, Rob, you're up next. Top, middle, bottom.
Just take it off the top.
Take it off the top. You get 6. You get other. So he gets to pick anything other than the main ones. You get to pick, pickleball or whatever you want.
Foosball?
Foosball. Yeah.
Foosball.
All right. So that leaves me, and I get number 3. I get soccer.
World Cup.
All right.
The World Cup's coming up, so that's a
look
good
at
one.
the summer of the World Cup. Look at that. Oh,
that means that since we need somebody to actually have a pick in mind for next month, I will go first. So for my soccer movie, I am picking the 1981 film Victory, starring Michael Caine. Now, if you are looking for that, of course, you can look for physical media copies, but you can also watch it for free on YouTube. And it may be on other streaming services as well, but that will kick off and forgive the pun, kick off, but there goes Eric's face.
I just got an idea for mine.
All right, and that will start off our Summer of Sports next month, so join us here. Watch Victory, starring Michael Caine, and we will see you here next time on Rare Cuts Media Society.